Are you ready to take on the ultimate DIY van life project? You've been saving for months to buy your dream van, but do you know the necessary steps to get started? Before you can turn your van into a tiny home on wheels, you're gonna wanna gut it, take it all apart, treat it for rust, and you might even wanna add some sweet upgrades like a new radio and a backup camera. But don't worry, I'm here to help you with all of that. So grab your tools and let's gut this van. The first thing I did was remove all the unnecessary parts that came with the van, like the dealership plates, name tags, all the panels like the back door panels, side panels, and footboards. Why I go through all this trouble? Well, we're planning to add insulation, a subfloor, walls, and a ceiling, so we need as much room as possible to work. It's also a good idea to reduce weight, which is a key consideration in our build. Some of these pegs are pretty hard to get off, but I used the prying part of this mini hammer to remove them pretty easily. I'm taking apart the panels all the way up to the cab area because I'll be installing a new radio with the backup camera and I need to run the wire all the way from the front to the back, but we'll touch more on that in a bit. To remove the ceiling, I pried off a bunch of these little tabs, which was actually pretty fun. To finish getting the ceiling off, I needed to cut around the house lights with a box cutter. There may be a better way to get these lights off without cutting the ceiling, but I'm not going to be using this ceiling piece again, so I don't really care if I damage it. Once the ceiling came down, I zip tied the house lights so they're not just hanging there and damaging the wires. I'm not going to be using these lights in the final build, but I do want to keep them until I'm ready to install new ones. Taking off the door panels was kind of funny because I found these like foam boxes inside. I don't know what they are exactly, but I think there's like some kind of mechanism inside, so I'm definitely not gonna mess with those. The next thing I did was take off the floor. This is gonna be the first time I take off this plastic flooring, so let's see what it looks like underneath. It's almost perfectly clean. This did used to be an old painter's van, so there's a bunch of paint chunks everywhere. And there's a little bit of like moisture right here. Other than that, it looks really good. I am gonna keep the floor because I'm gonna cut it out later to put in the subfloor. It'll be a lot easier for me to like trace it out. Now that we're done deconstructing the van, we're gonna install a new radio and a backup camera. Since I don't have any windows in the back of my van, I thought it would be a good idea to install a backup camera, you know, so I can see things with my eyes. Safety, yes. Although the stock radio worked just fine, I wanted something a little more modern, so I bought a Boss BE7ACP-CFT radio from Crutchfield.com, and it came with a backup camera, which was great. I'll make sure to link all the products I'm using down below. Crutchfield is pretty helpful, and they give you detailed instructions on how to install everything, but if you need additional help, definitely contact an expert and or read the instructions specific to your vehicle. The process of installing the radio and the backup camera was a little bit tricky for me, especially with all the wiring and stuff, so I got my brother-in-law Matt to come help me. Here's what we did. We opened the box and found the radio, head unit, dash kit, wiring adapter, wiring harness, backup camera, a 16-foot power video cable, antenna adapter, and a few other accessories. The first thing I did was disconnect the battery because I really don't want to blow anything up. I removed the paneling, disconnected the stock radio, and checked to see if my wiring adapter actually fit. It did. So I went inside and proceeded to connect the wiring adapter and the wiring harness, closely following the instructions given to me by Crutchfield. It's pretty much just matching up all the colors. You can actually buy the adapter and the harness already connected, but I wanted to save a little bit of money and do it myself. Next, I ran the 16-foot video and power extension cable from the back of the van all the way up to the front, and I basically just followed the stock wires that were already installed, tying it down with zip ties along the way. Meanwhile, Matt was under the dash putting a T-tap connector into the reverse trigger and running a wire to the head unit, making it easier for us to later connect the reverse trigger to the reverse wire on the wiring harness. That was a mouthful. Did you follow that? Well, look who decided to join us. It's Dean.
My name is Dean. Dean is my name. It's me. Kitty, 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 kitty.
Then we moved on to the backup camera. We found a good spot above the license plate and then drilled into the van, which is always a little bit scary.
It's working. It's working.
It's working! It's working!
We put a little grommet in the tiny 1/8-inch hole and fed the wire through. It was a very tight fit, but we got it in.
That's not going anywhere.
We actually decided to cut the backup camera wire first and then resolder it after so we can stick it through the tiny 1/8 inch hole and not have to cut a bigger hole than necessary. So that was fun. We're making progress, and now we just need to ground the negative, which is the small black wire on the power cable, to the reverse light by tapping into it. Is this all making sense to you guys? Then we connect the positive, which is the small red wire on the power cable, to the other small red wire on the video cable. We're almost done. Now we just need to connect the rear camera output that's on the wiring harness to the red cable that's attached to the video out. We also installed this little switch so I can turn on and off my camera while driving down the road. It's pretty cool. Finally, we're ready to install the radio. So we attached the dash kit, made sure everything was connected properly, turned the car on, and...
And
yes, it works.
I tested it out and made sure everything was working properly, and yeah, I'm really happy with it. I can see behind me when I'm backing up, the on-off switch works when I'm driving down the road, the radio sounds good. Everything works great. Plus, I love that I can charge my phone and listen to music at the same time while driving down the road. The other cool thing I wanted to mention was this phone holder I got from Attach Mounts. It's specifically designed for the Ford Transit Connect, which is pretty cool, and I've been driving with it already, and it works great. I love having this like dual monitor kind of set up. By the way, if you're finding this video helpful, let me know by leaving a like or a comment down below. Thank you. Alright, now that we're done installing the radio and all that, let's get ready for some rust prevention. During my research on the best options for rust prevention, I came across the POR 15 Stop Rust Kit. It includes a cleaner degreaser, metal prep, and rust prevention paint. It also comes with gloves and paintbrushes too. I started by sweeping off some of the dirt and pretty much cleaning the entire van with some all-purpose cleaner. Then I scraped down any rust spots I found with a wire brush, although I don't think this was entirely necessary because the instructions say you can just paint over the rust, but whatever, I did it anyways. I applied the cleaner degreaser in all the rust spots where I plan to apply the paint. The instructions say to wait about 15 minutes before wiping it off, so I did. Then I applied the metal prep and waited another 15 minutes before wiping it off, and now I'm ready to paint. I painted all the rust spots I could find, and even spots where the metal was scratched and exposed. All of this is going to be covered in the final build, so it doesn't really matter if it doesn't look pretty. Definitely make sure you wear some face protection to avoid inhaling any harmful chemicals. I totally forgot to do that the first time, and I did not feel so great afterwards. Just don't make the same mistake I did. I'm just looking out for you, okay? Next, I needed to remove the roof racks to address some more rust, but I had to take apart the ceiling of the cab to get to the bolts that were holding up the racks. Sometimes these tasks are more challenging than expected, as you can see by my look of confusion. After finding some secret star bolts, I was able to get the ceiling off and unbolt the roof racks. Another task quickly presented itself, annihilating the gooey butyl tape. I went to the store and bought some Goo Gone and a soft scraper, but the scraper didn't work so well, so I used a wire brush instead. Although this wasn't ideal because I didn't want to scratch the paint, I decided to rust prevent this entire section. It may look strange, but I'd rather keep the rust out. Plus, I can always paint over it later if I want to. I haven't decided yet if I'll be reusing the holes for the roof rack, so as a temporary solution, I filled the holes with silicone caulk. This worked pretty well because I drove around in the pouring rain a few days later and no water got in. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the work I've done so far. I gutted everything, installed a sick radio and backup camera, got a cool phone mount, prevented any future rust, and sealed up some holes. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you want to see the story of how I got my van, watch this video. Thanks for watching, bye.